Hey YouTube world, it's me Coco and I am back with another video. And today is Soul Sunday. For those who don't know what Soul Sunday is where I talk about my personal journey and little things about my personal life that I feel like I want to discuss, okay? So I'm just gonna go ahead and get straight into it. Y'all know last week I talked about my teenage years and how that pretty much went for me. Okay, if you want to check that out, feel free to do so. But now I'm about to get into my 20s. Okay, things really started kicking off when I was 22. I am now 26, going on 27. Okay, so I'm still fairly young. Yes. Okay, so yeah, things really started shifting and coming to my awareness when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, right? And the reason you'll hear me bring up my pregnancy and me raising her a lot because that definitely has a big part to play in my shift, right? When I was pregnant with her, right, I had severe morning sickness. I could only eat fruits and vegetables, maybe some whole grains. I could not eat no processed food. I couldn't drink soda. I could only drink water. I couldn't drink milk. I literally had to just eat bread and butter at some point because it's like, look, I can't keep going to the store to get fresh fruit. Like then nobody want to keep doing all that. Then I'll be too sick to go to the store. Ain't nobody trying to keep doing all that, right? So that's pretty much how my pregnancy played out. It's 12:34, but yeah, that's how my pregnancy played out. And the reason why that makes, like I said, that makes a difference because when you on your spiritual journey or your soul journey, your diet changes, right? Your lifestyle changes. I shouldn't say diet, but your lifestyle changes, right? Your eating habits definitely is one of the first things to change. Like you start to eat more clean foods rather than eating like the processed foods and stuff like that, right? And I'm not saying that you have to go vegan or etc because I've tried the whole vegan thing and it's overrated, and it is actually kind of hard to be vegan when you don't live in the area that caters to the vegan lifestyle, okay? But yeah, your food choices definitely change, and the universe definitely has its way of making you make these changes, and by God, they definitely made me make those changes, okay? But yeah, and then after I had my daughter, right, I found out she had eczema, because there would be things that I ate that broke her out and stuff like that, and it was actually eczema. It wasn't just like, regular skin irritation. It was actually eczema. So I used to take her to the doctors to figure out, and she had really bad flare-ups too, like really bad flare-ups. But I used to have to take her to the doctors, and they'll say, oh, try this and try that and try this and try that. And honestly, none of that stuff really worked. I mean, the medicated ointment worked, but looking at the medicated ointment, you're not really supposed to use it often. So, I kind of shied away from the medicated ointment because I don't like the fact that if she has an eczema flare up and it lasts for this amount of time, why am I only supposed to use it for a short amount of time? You get what I'm saying? Like, it just don't make sense, right? So because of that, I had to dab into finding home remedies to cure eczema, right? Like I said, I'm not really a big fan of medicine, so I had to dab into home remedies on curing viruses and stuff, right? This is what really opened my eyes and brought things to my conscious awareness, right? Because everything's been happening for the longest time subconsciously, right? Subconsciously happen. And that's when it really became conscious, and it took for me to have a child to realize everything pretty much needed to shift, right? And when I was pregnant with my second daughter, I went through the dark night of the soul phase. For those who don't know, the dark night of the soul phase is the ego death. Everything that you thought you knew, the Matrix, everything that you thought you knew, you either have the choice to take this red pill or the blue pill, okay? Everything that you thought you knew is about to change. And trust me, all that shit definitely changed over these years. And it's crazy because I'm the type of person, I'm very family oriented, even though I don't really it's weird because like I don't have a close relationship with my family because I was that problem child growing up, right? So pretty much, I felt alienated from the family. Whether they meant to do it or not, at the end of the day, I felt alienated from the family. So one of my biggest goals really is to create family unity. Like, I want to have, I want to be able to live with my family for generations. I want to be able to keep money in the family and stuff like that, right? So during the dark night of the soul phase, right, I manifested moving back in with my mom. And again, anytime that I talk trash about my mom, it's not meant to really disrespect her. It's just telling my side of the story based off my feelings, right? I will honestly say that my mother is not a bad mother. She did what she felt like she had to do, okay? So don't sit up here and be like, oh, you talking shit about your mother. No, I'm not talking shit about my mother. Because at the end of the day, my feelings does matter in these relationships that I've had with these people, okay? Understand that my feelings are valid. So I should be able to express my feelings without being called disrespectful, okay? But anyways, I manifested living back with my mom, and it was a time where my mom needed help too, right? And I really wanted everything to work together, really wanted us to work together and to keep money in the family and da-da-da. But we always butted heads. And we butt heads over the simplest things. Because of projections, right? People tend to project their realities onto me and then get mad because I don't take on their reality, right? Because your reality is not my reality. My reality is not your reality. And that's what people have to understand, is that we can have the same situation, but our realities be still two completely different things, okay? But yeah, I manifested living back with her, and I wanted to have this whole, generations living together, because technically it was.
My daddy can buy me
Technically, it was 3 generations, right? It was my mom, it was me and my sister, and then it was my 2 children, right? So that's what I wanted. I wanted to keep the family, hire my sisters as babysitters and, keep the money in the family. And I'm like, I really want to hire y'all as my babysitters, but y'all have to show me that I can trust y'all to babysit. If y'all act like my children are bothering y'all now while I'm here, imagine how that's going to make me feel. When I'm not here, I'm going to always question, like, what the fuck are y'all doing to my children? How are y'all treating my children, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that stuff matters. And nobody was really trying to get where I was coming from. Everybody was really trying to do their own thing, which is understandable and which is respectable. But it's just like, don't sit up here, and like I said, put your reality on me based off of what you feel is right, when at the end of the day, you're only really focused on self, while I'm focused on us, as a unity, right? My sisters don't work, their children, well, one was a child, one is a teenager, one is like, fairly young or whatever, right? So it's like, nobody work, this can benefit me just like it can benefit you. While I'm making money, you're making money, like, it just worked for everybody, and that was my thing. And going through the dark night of the soul phase, it's funny that I went through the dark night of the soul phase and that happened, because that just showed to me that at the end of the day, yes, this is what I want, but I have to understand that not everybody else what I want, even though it is something that actually will benefit us in the long run, because that is actually how you build generational wealth. You build generational wealth by having generations in the same house, by keeping money in the family, right? Like, and I understood that from a young age, and I've always wanted that from a young age, right? But anyways, to each his own, right? But that's something that I really had to learn the hard fucking way, right? And it took me a long ass time to understand a lot of things, why a lot of things happen the way they happen and stuff like that, right? And the crazy part is, my middle child, I like to call her my deja vu baby, because anytime I looked at her, look, I'm making a video today. You cannot have this video loud like that. But I call her my deja vu baby, because anytime I looked at her, it was a reminder that no matter how hard things are, I was always in the right time at the right place, right? I've always, as much as I hated shit, as much as I was unhappy and I was depressed and all this and all that, I was always at the right place at the right time. And I actually needed that, because shit was really tough going through the dark night of the soul phase, right? And then, stuff happened while I was there. Eventually, I got my own place. And that's when the dark night of the soul like really almost took me the fuck out. Mind y'all, I'm pregnant. I now have 2 young ones. I'm moving into my own place by myself. I'm absolutely by myself. No help, no friends, no family, no nothing. Like, when I tell y'all I had to take that it's not an L. Like, this is definitely a major win. But it definitely felt like an L going through it. But when I tell you I had to take that shit by myself, I had to take that shit by myself. And that shit was by far one of the hardest things that I've had to do, right? When I tell y'all it almost took me out, I wholeheartedly, literally mean it almost took me out, to say the least, okay? But yeah. And during the dark night of my soul phase, right, little things was happening, and I've had like plenty of aha moments. Like, for example, one of my famous sayings is, mentally, you're stuck at the age where you feel the most abandoned at, right? And for me, my age was 16, right? So mentally, even though, I'm growing up and, I'm really mature for my age and stuff like that, at the end of the day, no matter how much I was growing, no matter how much I was maturing, I still felt like a 16-year-old teenager. And the funny thing is, when I had my daughter, right, I had a vision of me mentoring the 16-year-old version of myself with her baby, right? And at the time, of course, it didn't make sense to me. But, later on, when I went back and realized everything, it made sense. It was me, healing my inner child. It was me healing that part of me that felt abandoned. It was me, telling myself, like, it's okay. At the end of the day, these things aren't your fault. Like, everybody tried to put everything on somebody. But at the end of the day, I'm not saying that I'm innocent, but most of my battles were me versus adults, right? It was me versus adults. And it wasn't like I was just being a rebel. It's just the fact that adults don't understand that they have to have, like, that us as children, well, I'm not a child, but, they have to understand that children and teenagers have boundaries too. And you have to respect those boundaries. Adults have to respect these boundaries of teenagers and children. And that was always my issue growing up, is that I've had boundaries, but my boundaries was never always respected because, oh, you're a child, you don't get the right to do this. My mother used to tell me all the time, you shut up, you don't have the right to cry, you don't have the right to talk right now, you don't have the right to do this, you don't have the right to do that, right? That's the shit that I grew up with. And understand, as parents and as adults, children have these rights. These are basic human rights, okay? We have these rights. If we want to set up a boundary, then we can set up these boundaries. Now, that's not saying that, you just let your children do whatever they want because they want to set up so many boundaries. It's just understand that humans have boundaries, right? And I had to really go in and reprogram all those things that that were kind of wrong with me, right? Another saying, get off her chair. Another saying that I used to always go around saying is, the voice in the back of your head, the voice that you speak to, the voice that talks to you when you're doing wrong is 9 times out of 10 the voice of your parents, right? And here's why I say that, right? Because like I said, my mom, she was, you don't have the right to do this, you don't have the right to do that, calling me all types of names, really like blurting out my wrongs, right? So when I did something that was fucked up, I used to always hear my mother say, see, that's what the fuck you get, your dumb ass. You not listening to me when you doing this, and I told you to do that. And see, if you would have listened to me this, and like stuff like that. Like, that's how my mother really talked to me. And when I first moved into this apartment, I had to realize I had to reprogram my mind. That's not how I want to talk to myself. That's not how I want to talk to my children. Like, I'm a real big advocate on conscious parenting. And conscious parenting doesn't mean that you just let your children do whatever. Conscious parenting is more for yourself than it is for your children. Because one thing I try to do, me personally, learning from the stuff that I learned, from my teenage years up until now, like, it's literally a big shift. And that's where that ego death come into play, because it's really a big shift. I'm not the type of mother that's going to be like, you need to sit your ass down, you're a dumbass, and da-da-da, this and that. I'm like, look, mama. Didn't I tell you I need to I need you to do this. Then I tell you I need you to do this. I understand that you don't want to do it, but you have to remember, like I really try to rationalize with my children. Communication is really key. And that's why, I know I'm going off on like different tangents, but like, as you see, when you're on this journey and you really talk and stuff like that, like everything really comes full circle, right? And this is just an example. Like everything that I'm preaching to y'all, I'm really actually learning as I'm going along, and I'm actually speaking from experience. I'm not speaking out the side of my ass because I think that this is right, or I've heard it from somewhere else, and stuff like that. Like, no, these are my actual experiences, and I'm just sharing my experience with you, and whatever you do with it is up to you, right? But back to communication, right? Like I said, that's how my mother communicated with me, right? I'm blessed that I know how to communicate, but a lot of people don't know how to communicate because they had the type of mother that I had, right? Like, y'all gotta realize, us as parents have to realize what we are instilling in our children, right? Okay, like all this actually does make sense in hindsight when you when you put it all together. This is why I'm expressing all this stuff, because like I said, this is me going through it in my 20s, and everything is coming full circle. Everything, like, you could, this dot connects with that dot, and then that dot connects to this dot, and then this dot connects to that dot, and that dot connects to that. Like, everything is just pretty much connected and intertwined when you really sit back and you really think about everything that I'm saying. Like, you may think that I'm rambling, but you won't have that, nah, I see what she's talking about moment. Okay, because I be having a moment too. But I ain't gonna hold y'all up too long because it has been over my 10 minutes that I wanted to have. But anyways, yeah, I'll be back with some more of the tea. But now I'll be back next week for my Soul Sundays. So enjoy the rest of y'all week.